A group of people forced the man to kneel on the ground. Then they brought out a huge wrench. After restraining the man's hand, they smashed his fingers. The man screamed in unbearable pain. Then he was kicked into a muddy pit. He begged bitterly in the pit, but the people didn't stop. Instead, they sped up the burial. However, what they didn't know was, this time, they messed with the wrong guy. The man's name was Sun-woo, a top enforcer in the mafia. When he wasn't beating people up, he loved eating chocolate desserts. A waiter came to inform him there was trouble in the shop. Sun-woo quickly headed to the room and politely gave them a bow. "Sorry, gentlemen, we're closing now. I'll count to 3. Please leave immediately." After he finished counting, the 3 men arrogantly stayed put. Sun-woo leapt onto the table and kicked one of them down, then knocked out another with a wine bottle. In less than 5 seconds, Sun-woo coolly walked out of the room. That day, boss Choi cleared everyone else out of the room. He wanted to talk to Sun-woo in private. He had a business trip to Shanghai the next day and had a girlfriend 30 years younger than him here. Lately, he suspected she might be seeing someone else. He asked Sun-woo to keep an eye on her for now. If it turned out to be true, he should either call him directly or just handle it himself. To get closer to the girlfriend, Sun-woo even bought her a gift. He had specially picked it out for her. She had fair skin, a beautiful face, and long legs. It was his first time being this close to such a stunning girl. Sun-woo suddenly felt at a loss. He didn't even dare look her in the eye. Sun-woo said he'd be responsible for driving her around, but the girl said that wouldn't be necessary. Sun-woo tactfully left the room, but he didn't go far. Instead, he quietly watched from outside the villa. Soon, the girl got into another man's car. Sun-woo followed behind them while they ate in a fancy restaurant. He had street food outside while they danced in a club. He secretly observed from upstairs. Suddenly, Sun-woo felt, maybe this is what life for young people is supposed to be. The next day, the girl asked him out for a meal. The whole time, Sun-woo still didn't dare look up. After all, he was just a thug. After the meal, he took her to violin class. Looking at her delicate, refined face, Sun-woo felt something indescribable. It was like a willow swaying by the river. Not the wind that moved, not the tree that swayed, but his heart that stirred. When the class ended, Sun-woo came to pick her up. But a man was walking ahead of her, so Sun-woo had to turn and leave. He followed them to the girl's home. The man went upstairs and never came back down. Sun-woo rang the doorbell, then took a running start and climbed the wall. He pushed the door and entered the room. The girl was startled to see him. Just then, the man walked out from the bathroom. He tried to sneak away, but Sun-woo kicked him to the ground. The man tried to get up and fight back, but Sun-woo shoved him onto the table. The girl rushed in to stop him. Sun-woo instinctively raised his hand to strike, but held himself back. Just as he was about to deal a fatal blow, the girl stepped in to shield the man. Out of respect for the girl, Sun-woo dropped what was in his hand. He planned to call Choi. Just as he was about to hit dial, he saw the girl crying her heart out and remembered how lovely she was. Sun-woo softened. He gave the two of them a choice. From now on, cut all ties completely. Pretend nothing happened today, but the girl was heartbroken. Messing with a road rage driver is no joke. Sun-woo was driving, feeling down. A car behind kept flashing its lights, honking aggressively at him. Sun-woo tried to ignore it at first, but once they pulled up side by side, the driver spat at him and threw a cigarette butt onto his window. That completely set Sun-woo off. He floored it and chased after them, forced their car to a stop, got out and buttoned up his coat. The other guys arrogantly came over to fight, but he kicked one down, punched out another. The driver hadn't even stepped out yet when the door was slammed on him multiple times. Then Sun-woo smashed his head into the car window, pulled out the car keys, and threw it down under the bridge, then coolly drove away. Back home, Sun-woo lay on the sofa, unable to sleep. He could only keep turning the lights on and off to relieve stress. After a few switches, something terrifying happened. He was suddenly surrounded by a group of burly men with weapons. Before he could react, they all rushed at him. No matter how tough he was still outnumbered. Soon, he was bloodied and hung up in a warehouse. Not long after, Hwang arrived. Turns out those 3 guys from the start were his men. Hwang wanted to teach Sun-woo a lesson, planned to torture him with a small knife. Just then, a phone rang nearby. Sun-woo was blindfolded and thrown into a car. Even in the car, they kept beating him. In the pouring rain, Sun-woo was dumped on the roadside. He fumbled to remove the blindfold, and headlights lit up in front of him. It was Choi who had returned, and he already knew about the girlfriend situation. Choi questioned Sun-woo why he didn't tell him. Sun-woo didn't know how to respond. Seeing his silence, Choi just turned and left, leaving him in the hands of his henchman Park. Park had always disliked Sun-woo. Now he finally had a chance to really torment him. After leaving, Choi called again, once more asking why Sun-woo kept it from him.
약속만 지켜준다면 모두가 좋아질 거라고 생각했습니다.
Choi believed Sun-woo had caught feelings. Seeing that Sun-woo wouldn't admit it, Choi calmly said one word, bury him. And so the opening scene occurred. After having his fingers broken, Sun-woo was buried alive. You think the movie ends here? Of course not. Soon the soil began to shift. A hand reached out from the muddy grave in the rain. Sun-woo crawled out from underneath, gasping desperately for air. Before he could catch his breath, Park clapped in mock celebration. Turns out the hole was too shallow. Come out, I'll wash you up. Then Park blasted him with a high-pressure water gun. After thoroughly rinsing him, Park told him he had 15 minutes to call the boss and explain. Soon, they'd dig a deeper grave. Sun-woo started scanning the surroundings. If he wanted to escape alive, he had to be flawless. After observing the area, he removed the battery from his phone, and when Park approached, he struck and hit Park right in the eye. After a furious outburst, he grabbed a torch, facing the many thugs in front of him. Every move he made was lethal, but the enemies had the numbers. He had to find a way out quickly. In the chaos, he jumped into a car. The thugs quickly climbed on to stop him. The car rampaged through the warehouse and finally burst through the wall and escaped. Outside, a few thugs were still busy digging a hole. Hey, stop digging. The one we were gonna bury already ran off. Park quickly called Choi. Choi was completely shocked. He knew letting the tiger return to the mountains would bring endless trouble. So he quickly called on all the major gangs, planning to join forces and wipe out Sun-woo. Meanwhile, Sun-woo wasn't wasting time either. He began preparing his revenge plan. First, he needed to get some guns. Unexpectedly, the seller only trusted people, not money. Sun-woo had no choice but to say it was Choi's order. While they were busy confirming the info on the phone, Sun-woo shot and killed him. After taking out the thugs too, Sun-woo grabbed a few guns and left. First, he went to find Hwang. Hwang looked shocked, trembling in fear. While Sun-woo wasn't paying attention, he quickly pulled out a small knife and stabbed at Sun-woo wildly. When Sun-woo collapsed, Hwang looked extremely smug. Weren't you acting tough just now? And then he was taken down with one shot by Sun-woo. Choi was still wondering where Sun-woo was hiding. Just then, Sun-woo came to him voluntarily. He entered the restroom, loaded all the guns with bullets, then washed his face with cold water. As he stepped out, he ran into Park. Park quickly pulled out a knife, but was shot down with 2 bullets. Going upstairs, he shot down another one, and soon reached Choi face to face. He questioned Choi, "I followed you loyally like a dog for 7 years. Why would you treat me like this?" Seeing Choi refuse to speak, he shot him straight through the heart. Just then, Hwang's men stormed in. They opened fire wildly with their guns. Sun-woo hid behind a pillar. When they paused to reload, he seized the chance to fire back, then quickly ducked behind the bar counter. The enemy fired another wild barrage. When they reloaded again, Sun-woo stepped out with his submachine gun. He exchanged fire with them, but ended up collapsing to the ground. At that moment, a man in a trench coat appeared. He gunned down the remaining enemies, then walked over to Sun-woo. By now, Sun-woo was gravely wounded, barely hanging on. He wanted to call his girlfriend, but sadly dropped his phone. As sweet memories of her flooded his mind, bang, a single gunshot. It was fired by the trench coat guy. Turns out he was the gun dealer's brother. He came seeking revenge for his brother. Sun-woo lay lifeless on the ground, and that's how the film A Bittersweet Life ends. They say beauty brings misfortune. All this over one little girlfriend, 2 gangs wiped out, and a top-notch enforcer lost his life. Totally not worth it. If you ever spot this kind of femme fatale, do let me know. Let me deal with her alone. Alright, I'm Peggy. If you want more awesome movie breakdowns, remember to follow me. Bye-bye.